Cathy, are you? Got it.
Let's give it another just quick 2 minutes before we get started.
Cathy Robinson, are you still working from home over in Tri-Cities?
Yes, I am.
Is this a permanent thing or
They haven't told us that we have to go back into the office yet. So we'll see.
Oh, nice. Nice to have that flexibility.
Town Transit's official go back to work day was this Monday, who chose to go back to work. We still have a choice, or at least for 6 months. And they're going to reassess it 6 months if it's working.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody has such different things to take into consideration, and the larger the organization, the more challenging it is, I think. The port here has been back in person. Well, we never left. We were partly, part-time from home, part-time in the office, just to keep 25% in the office, but we've been full-time since June of last year.
Question for Cathy.
But we're small. We're small.
Cathy, with work hybrid or being away, has, in your sense, productivity gone up or down or been the same?
Up. We get a lot more work done because we don't go to Starbucks at 2 or go to lunch at noon.
So do you have a personal life outside of work, Cathy?
I go to work for a personal life. And right now we're trying to arrange it so that we're all think we're going to go back at least 1 day a week.
Yeah.
And we're all trying to figure out which day's best for all of us so that we can meet and go to lunch.
That'd be great. That's what I think a lot of us have missed, is that in person, just to be able to catch up. And yeah.
Well, it's 3 minutes past noon, so let's go ahead and get started on our lunch and learn. Thank you everybody for joining us today. We're going to have this really fantastic panel about virtual supplier environment, which I'm sure everybody's kind of becoming more and more accustomed to, some of us more than others. I want to thank, first I want to thank our panel and as well as introduce them. We've got Cathy Robinson, who's the Procurement and Contracts Manager from the City of Lynwood. One quick fun fact about Cathy is that's very germane to our discussion today, is that she was the lead in bringing a new e-bidding tool to the City of Lynwood in response to the COVID-19 shutdown. So welcome, Cathy Robinson, and thank you. Another great thank you, huge thank you and welcome to the group is to Alex Clark with King County. He is the Category Management Supervisor. And one fun fact about Alex is that he used to teach ESL in South Korea, so that's pretty cool. And our third panelist today, another thank you for Cathy Roberts, not to be confused with Cathy Robinson. Cathy Roberts is the Senior Contract Specialist for Sound Transit. And she has been a season ticket holder for the Seattle Seahawks now for 20 years. So welcome and thank you, all three of you. Just a couple of housekeeping items for today. Just some upcoming, oh, thanks for giving me control. I don't know why. Can we go back one? Thank you. Just a quick list of our upcoming events. Victor's been very gracious and has been kind of cycling through this one while we've been waiting. Region 8 conference is next week. Yay! So hope to see everybody there. This will pop this slide back up at the end of the meeting today. Just some quick, next slide, please. I don't know what I'm doing. Thanks, Victor. Just a couple housekeeping items. Make sure that you're mute. This kind of enables everybody to hear everything that's going on, especially as we do a panel discussion. If you wouldn't mind, if you could change your participant name to your full name. And to do that, if you click on your picture, there's a little ellipsis at the upper right hand corner. and you can just click on that little rename tab. This is the way that we kind of check to see who has attended and issue credit and thank yous. If you have any questions, at the bottom of your screen, there is a reactions button with the little smiley face and the plus, and just raise your hand. And I'm keeping an eye on hands raised and keeping an eye on the chat. So I'll be sure to make sure that we can read your question and call on you. And with that, I'm going to start. I'm going to open up our panel for questions. Our first question, I'm going to go with Cathy Robinson, and then Alex, and then Cathy Roberts. So Cathy and group, how did you get buy-in from your internal departments to change the format of your vendor events?
Well, we didn't kind of sort of have a choice at that point. Switching over to electronic solicitations was something that was on our goals for the year of 2020, but it wasn't a high priority. And then all of a sudden COVID hit, so it like jumped right up to the top. And so basically procurement took the lead on it, and we went out and looked at, I believe, 3 different providers, and then selected the one that we currently use now. And we were up and running literally within a week. We didn't issue our first solicitation, I think, until June, but we were up and running within a week.
What kind of, I'm going to kind of dovetail onto that question too for everybody. What kind of, what was the learning curve? Did you have was there a lot of resistance? Kind of talk about, can you describe that a little bit for us?
There wasn't any resistance. About half the team had used an electronic bidding platform before, so they were very familiar with it, and a couple of them were not, but they didn't have any issues learning it and, you know, learning all the features and everything. When we rolled it out to the rest of the city, again, it just depends on how tech savvy somebody was. The ones that are more tech savvy could follow the process and everything. Some people needed a little bit more instructional guidance along the way.
Okay. Alex, same questions.
Yeah, I mean, kind of the same as Cathy said. We, you know, when COVID hit, we didn't really have a choice. I was actually at the city of Tacoma at the time, and it, you know, we tried to figure out ways to get bids electronically. We didn't really have a the system wasn't set up for it at the time, and so we actually just started receiving them via email. And at King County, you know, I asked around to see how they did it over here too, and it was kind of the same thing. They first pivoted to email, and then it wasn't until sometime in November of 2020 we actually got our own, you know, electronic bidding system, which is what we use now, which is Oracle e-procurement. And so to your question of like internal departments and getting buy-in on that, it was kind of one of those things where they were looking to us for answers, right, and solutions to how to continue doing procurements, but do it in a virtual way. So in my experience, when we came to them with solutions, like they were, you know, they were completely open to it. Basically, they were you know, they were happy to actually have a way to continue doing business. So it wasn't hard to get internal buy-in.
Okay. Cathy Roberts.
So, at Sound Transit, we were lucky. We've always done electronic bids, and we had just received a new program that we installed it in the year before. The only thing we had chose not to do is to have our SOQs electronically submitted through this program. And it just made us do it faster. They were always going to do it somewhere down the road. It's like somewhere down the road is now. And it was really no different than, we couldn't take them paper. They couldn't come to a front desk and we go retrieve them. So in that way, we got lucky. And as far as the learning curve, since we had already been using the program for almost a year, all the contract specialists and everybody knew the program. So there was no learning curve other than it was just, instead of a type 1 procurement, it was a type 3 where you could get electronic submissions. And that was the only difference for us.
Okay, thank you. So similar question, but from a vendor standpoint, what type of resistance or learning curve have you experienced with your vendors? Because one thing I am finding is we all kind of use different solutions for our e-procurement, right? So what kind of resistance, learning curve, and maybe feedback have you received from your contractors?
Well, they really enjoy the fact that they don't have to physically send a person to drop off a bid, that they can work on it, overnight and don't have to worry about putting it in a FedEx envelope by a certain cutoff time or anything like that. As far as the learning curve, again, it kind of goes to how well they know technology. Some of the people that are lucky enough to have office staff, they're pretty computer savvy, and so they can figure it out and everything. There is like a 2-step registration type process, and sometimes that threw them because they would only like half register. So we kind of clarified some instructions on the vendor's website on how they do that to kind of walk them through it a little bit more. But I honestly have to say our service provider has now caught up, and they've got some very good screenshots and videos out there to help walk contractors through signing up, registering, downloading bids, submitting bids. So that really took a lot of the questions off of us. And the one feedback I've got from across the board, from even internally, was that they love the fact that as soon as the bid closes, the bid tabs are like right there. There's an email that goes out to everybody and they can click on the link and they can see the bid tabs.
Thanks, Cathy. Same question for you, Alex. What kind of learning curve or feedback have you received from your vendors?
Yeah, I mean, when the new system went into place in November, we did have some challenges at first with vendors getting in there and submitting a bid or a proposal. Like Cathy said, we have it's almost like a 2-step registration process that they need to sign up as a supplier before they're able to respond back to a solicitation. But they also need to sign up as a supplier, or they used to have to sign up as a supplier to even access the documents. So we'd post the solicitation, they would get their email, and then immediately kind of reach out and say, like, hey, how do I find the documents, right? And we would we'd have to kind of instruct them on, hey, you have to sign up, you have to sign up as a supplier, and this is how you find it. And so to help mitigate that, we created a whole bunch of supplier resources and started doing more supplier orientations to kind of show them, how to access the system and how to download documents, from the system. And then actually just recently we started posting, we figured out there's an enhancement that came with the system that allowed us to start posting our documents directly to the website through the system. So that just went live April 4th. So pretty recently. So we just started posting the documents, you know, in public, like in a public facing way, so they don't have to sign up first. So yeah, I mean, we definitely ran into a few challenges, and had to create a whole bunch of resources to be able to help suppliers access the documents and, you know, respond back.
Thanks, Alex. Cathy.
So we started our electronic bid, our new one, in advance, enough in advance that we were still in person, an expo, and we had 7 or 8 Sound Transit employees that anybody that came up as a vendor, we signed them up front for them during the 2-day expo. So that alleviated a lot of problems. And we still, even now after 3 years using the same system, in all of our RFQs and RFPs, we actually have a how-to section that shows them how to upload all the documents to the website. So we haven't had really anybody, we haven't had any negatives. I think we just got lucky that we did it 3 years prior to all the shutdown, and they were already used to using the system. And it did help that we were there with, like I said, 8 people signing vendors up for 2 days. So they didn't have to go in and do it. And they just got the link, and they could go in and start using it immediately.
Questions from the chat. Christopher Martinez from Port Olympia is asking, he's curious to know if the number of submissions have increased or decreased or stayed about the same after switching to your e-procurement. Cathy, you want to start us off?
Well, I guess I can't answer that for sure, because we went into, we went right into COVID. And so a lot of our vendors and stuff were responding. A lot of them weren't, and even now because of supply issues. So it's kind of all over the board. If we're doing a project that's more labor related and doesn't have a whole lot of material supplies, we do get good responses for those. Some of our larger, especially construction bids that have steel, concrete, those kind of things, probably not as many as we have seen in the past, but I think that's all attributed to supply issues. I can tell you from the RFPs and RFQs, we have seen a lot more responses electronically for those.
Thanks, Cathy. Alex?
Yeah, I haven't actually heard of any impacts from the construction side of the house. When it comes to the goods and services and technology contracts or rosters that we set up, at the beginning, the feedback that I got was that, we didn't get quite as many as we were expecting, but as like I said, we've started developing all sorts of supplier resources and kind of showing them how to use the system and doing way more outreach. And that's helped a lot. And so now, I mean, we just closed an RFQ for a roster, and I think we got something like 90 responses. So it's definitely, it's definitely increased, and I don't think it hasn't had like a huge impact on the numbers.
Okay, thanks, Alex. Go ahead, Cathy.
We have not seen a change. We tend to go to people, we go back to the plan list and see for primes if they don't submit for the project and find out why they're not submitting, just for our curiosity's sake. And most of them they don't have the capacity with personnel to do the job. So it has nothing to do with our electronic bidding. It just has to do with employees and capacity. So we haven't noticed any difference at all.
Okay, thank you. Next question from the group comes from Marcus Bach. Have you seen an increase or a decrease in supplier services, response times, quality of their work with this virtual environment?
I don't believe so. You know, the solicitations when they come in are still based on, you know, especially for small works or construction, are based on the specs we put out, and we still do the responsibility checks and everything. To tag on what Cathy said, now we haven't seen an issue with the quality of work, but we have seen delays where when they've ordered the material's been delayed. Whoops. Or in the very beginning, you know, somebody on their crew would come down with COVID, so the whole site would shut down back then. So we had those things to work around, but I would say not so much the quality as much as delivery issues.
Okay, thanks, Cathy.
Yeah, I would have to second what Cathy said. I mean, there's obvious issues when it comes to delivery of materials based because of supply chain issues that we're kind of running into. But I think the only change, and I haven't measured this, but I think we're probably getting more consulting. Like if we put out an RFP for a consultant, or you know, we're trying to develop a roster, because the work is going to be virtual. I think we're getting more responses from other parts of the country, and not, you know, not just you know, local to Washington or anything, because you know, they can log in and do the work anywhere. You know, they don't have to come into a conference room. So it's I don't think we've seen a drop in quality or anything like that. I just think we've probably been getting more responses.
Okay, thanks, Alex.
I don't have anything to add because our situation is the same. You know, other than the concrete strike, we really haven't had too much of an impact of quality. It was, you know, delays because of materials, and that's about all we've seen. And that's the materials. There's nothing that can be done about it. It's not bad work or bad contractors. It's just they can't get what they need to do the job.
Do you notice you have a higher attendance at any virtual bid openings? I see Cathy Roberts nodding her head yes.
Well, we don't technically do bid openings anymore. We just set our procurement e-bidding software to immediately release the results right afterwards. So that kind of is our bid opening. And like I said earlier, that's been something that the contractors actually have loved, because as soon as the bid closed, they said like within 8 seconds, they got a notification to click on a link and see the bid tabs. So yeah, so we don't physically have one. Now, I will caveat that with when we do have WSDOT funded construction projects, we are still hosting a virtual bid opening, but those have, in the beginning, those were attended by several people, and now not so much.
I think so. I think we've probably gotten more people. And I mean, we have gotten some feedback from some of the suppliers that, you know, bid openings used to be in the Chinook building downtown Seattle. And so some of the feedback that we've gotten is that they don't have to find parking. So it's a lot more convenient for them to just kind of, you know, log in and virtually attend, and then go on to whatever the next thing they have, you know, during their day. So so yeah, I think there has been an increase in participation.
I would agree with Alex. The last few bid openings we've had, everybody that has submitted a bid and some of the subs have attended. It's way easier to log on to a link than it is to try to park at Union Station. So, and that's where our bid openings were always at Union Station. So we have seen an increase since we're virtual on bid openings. We have a lot more attendees.
Okay. So next question, what's been the biggest surprise with the changes that you've implemented as a reaction to COVID? For example, unexpected cost, that resistance that I asked about earlier, and that kind of resistance can be internal or external.
I'm not sure there's any resistance. I was going to say, because we kind of got thrown into this and we didn't have time to plan, there probably would have been some things that we probably would have done before just jumping in, and it probably would have made our process and procurement a little bit smoother. You know, we did try and email blast a lot of people and tell them we were moving to this platform and doing online e-bidding submittals. You know, would we have probably taken it a little bit longer and done more outreach? Absolutely. But we just didn't have the time. We just had to jump in.
Thanks, Cathy. Alex, big surprises for you guys.
Big surprises. Yeah, I feel like this is kind of a hard one to answer. I don't think there were any, off the top of my head, I can't think of any sort of unexpected costs, like Cathy said, any resistance, because we just kind of had to do it for, you know, continuation of business. And so, like I said before, people were more or less happy that we were like continuing to find solutions. I think for me, maybe the big surprise would be that, you know, it wasn't, I'm not saying it was easy, because we had to come up with a lot of solutions kind of on the fly, but I think ever since I've been in public procurement, you know, it was like, oh, we got to do things this way, or this is, you know, this is the way that we receive bids, and this is the way we do like bid openings. And then and because we got put into this situation, like it's there's all these other ways to do things that that previously didn't seem possible, but you know, kind of made it work. So yeah, I guess I don't know if that answers the question, but
Thanks, Alex.
Didn't have any big surprises either, since we were always doing it electronically. The only thing it did speed up is we have in contracts have complained all along, why are we sending things out for wet signatures? And because of everything being electronic now, they finally have gotten off wet signatures. We do it all electronically, and then we are no longer having paper files. We are doing electronic files that are going to be the permanent records, and paper's gone. And we have been asking that for years, and they finally realized that we can do it now, that everything else has to be done electronically. We might as well get no wet signatures and no paper copies for anything anymore in our files, which is wonderful.
Nice, nice. Our next, oh, go ahead, Alex, sorry.
Kind of to piggyback off what Cathy said real quick, I think maybe that would be like moving stuff to the electronic format. How much less paper you have to, you know, how much less paper you have to use, or you don't have stacks of RFPs responses, you know, on your desk, and how much, I guess, just how much nicer things are sometimes, like when you move it to electronic format. That'd be the surprise.
Next question, are any of you planning to go forward all virtual or hybrid? And then kind of how do you envision that working for your agency?
So right now we are pretty much all virtual. The only time we still offer the option of a paper document is if it's related to any WashDOT funded project. because they still require us to offer that as an option. And that's a hit and a miss depending on the project. Sometimes we do end up getting a paper copy, but most of the time we do not.
Okay.
I would say we're probably going to continue to stay all virtual. We are still moving things towards getting it electronically. I'm not part of the construction team, but we, the construction team just reached out to legal and we got approval to start getting bonds electronically, whereas before they had to be wet signed and notarized. So like I said, we're still shifting things to an electronic format, and I think we're going to continue to do that. So I think we're probably going to stay all virtual.
Yeah. Thanks, Alex.
Sound Transit has been virtual since March of 2020, and Monday was the first day that if you chose to go back to work, that you had to report to work. And so we still have an option. It's either mostly from home or mostly from work. And I picked mostly from home, so did most people, but it's going to be reevaluated in 6 months to see how it works. They may call us all back and say, nope, you guys got to come back and you can have a couple of days off a week to stay at home and work. I'm not sure how that's going to work yet. We're kind of still in the see how it works stages. And as far as I saw bonds, because of virtual, we've had to, I went in a year ago and we had 18 months worth of mail that I was trying to find 5 bonds for construction projects. They were pretty big ones. And after that, our legal department said the same thing. Get them electronically. We don't need wet signatures. If they're signed, it's enough official for us and they don't send us the hard copies.
Okay. So I guess I'll skip ahead a little bit. I'm reading in the chat here. So I guess I'm going to skip ahead a little bit and ask the question, do you bother requesting original copies of the bid bonds? Do you just get them from the winning bidder? Is it just an electronic copy only? Do you kind of do both? Kind of describe that process with how that works for your agency.
So as they mentioned, both Alex and Cathy mentioned, legal basically came back and said that if you have a copy of a bond, not even a bid bond, but even a payment and performance bonds, as long as you have that bond number on there, it's valid. So are we going to maybe somewhere down the road look at using a surety software where they could upload a copy of the bond and we could actually go in and look at it somewhere down the line? Yes, but right now we just asked them to scan a copy of the bond along with the attorney in fact sheet of paper along with the bond. So basically just like what they normally would submit for a paper bond, and they just upload a copy of it.
Thanks, Cathy.
Yeah, like I said before, I'm not on the construction team, but what I've heard is that they're doing the same thing where now you can just upload a copy of the bond and we don't need a physical copy with a wet signature on it.
Okay, thanks, Alex. And then Cathy Roberts, I think you'd already answered that for Sound Transit. Yeah,
we don't know. They're all electronic now.
Okay. So for the panel, did you involve your legal departments in your process change, moving from, in-person bid openings, paper documents, that sort of thing? Did you involve legal at all? And if so, kind of what legal advice did they give?
So back when I worked at Richland and then prior to me coming to Lynwood, both of the municipal codes had been updated before COVID to allow electronic bidding and to receive bids and solicitations electronically. So in both situations, we rewrote the code to remove any reference to sealed bids shall be submitted to a location and, publicly opened and read out loud. We removed the read out loud. We left the publicly opened because you can do publicly opened on a website now. It doesn't have to be quote in person. So all of that was already done before COVID in preparation of eventually moving to electronic solicitations.
Perfect. Thanks, Cathy. Alex, what about you guys?
Yeah, so I did reach out to some other people here in King County to figure out if they did before I started here, and they did reach out to the PAO, and basically what they said was as long as it's open to the public, it would meet the intent of the law. So so originally when they were doing it by phone, they that met it, and then now that we're doing it over Teams or Microsoft Teams, that still meets it. So so yeah, we did consult with PAO and they approved it.
Perfect. Cathy, what about Sound Transit?
We did not consult with them originally with electronic bids because we had already been in the process and had already been vetted through everybody at Sound Transit. We did, when we decided to go electronic bonds only, we did go to our legal department to find out if they were legal and if we needed wet signatures. And once we found out we did not need the wet signatures, we didn't take them anymore. But that was the only way we went to legal, was about the bonds.
Okay, perfect. Next question, what were the policy, procedure, ordinance updates that your agency needed to implement in order to bring electronic bidding into your agency? And I know, Cathy, you'd already answered the question about your ordinance, but what about policies and procedures? How did those change for City of Lynwood?
The policies and procedures, we just updated them to reflect that it's being done virtually and not in person. So, I mean, some of our policies were, you go collect them from the front desk and everything like that. So we just basically uploaded those to just now when we get ready to release a solicitation, we have in our processes that you turn on the switch to publicly make the totals or the names of the proposers public at the time of closing. So that's kind of basically what we did.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so like I was saying before, like when I started at King County, the new e-procurement system was already in place. So unfortunately, I don't have good context on what they changed to, when they put that system in place or when they were migrating to that system. I will say that, since I've been here though, there's been, we have updated procedures to, like I said, post things on the public facing website, to point suppliers to resources that we have, or to, just mostly things to help suppliers register and get in the system and be able to access and respond back to solicitations. So procedures surrounding that. But yeah, unfortunately, I can't really speak to like the change that happens leading up to that though.
Thanks, Alex. Cathy?
We're pretty much like Cathy said. The only thing we did really was take out anything that had to do with dropping off, picking up, hard copies, anything that was that in our solicitations was all taken out to say electronically submitted. And everywhere we could, we put in the link to our vendor portal so that they had that. And the only thing we did have to do is we always accept exceptions to our contract that we propose, and that we had to have two separate files, one for their SOQ and then one for their exceptions, because we don't open the exceptions until they're actually proven to be responsive and responsible. And then we'll go look at their exceptions. So that was the only difference, that kind of the first few times was a little iffy for the contractors to submit. But after the couple of first times, we figured it out. And so we've kind of ironed that out. So same thing, we've just taken out all the hand in paper document information out of our solicitations. And it all says electronic.
Perfect. Thanks, Cathy. So what changes have you made to encourage vendor participation in your virtual environment, whether it's bids or in-person types of activities? How have you encouraged vendor participation?
From the larger firms, we didn't really have to do anything there. It's mainly with the smaller businesses. And especially if we were reaching out to them for informal quotes, we would actually contact them either via email or via phone first and ask them if they were registered, asked them if they were familiar with the system, you know, and then walk them through some of their office personnel. We would walk them through the process. And we did that for some of our smaller businesses, and that was received rather well.
Thanks, Cathy. Alex, what about King County? How are you guys encouraging vendor participation?
Yeah, kind of what I said before, like we've been making improvements in outreach and making improvements on accessibility when it comes to, you know, like files and being able to respond back to solicitations. You know, we've found things since the system went live in November 2020. We've discovered, I guess, issues that would mitigate vendor participation. And like, for example, you could only pick one contact per supplier that that the solicitation would go out to. And we were finding out that maybe the contact that was picked just, you know, wasn't didn't have like a bidder's role, or, you know, like, or wasn't the right person to go to. And so you know, we kind of created this secondary report that we run that sends it out to everyone. Everyone's registered under that. Everyone registered under that NAICS code for that supplier, right? So so basically, it's just more outreach. More people are getting that that notification, and also encouraging, you know, pre-bid meetings, pre-proposal meetings, and instead of site tours, replacing that with floor plans, and which seems to have, you know, kind of done the trick. So yeah, just more outreach, constant outreach to all vendors.
Okay. Thanks, Alex. Cathy, what about Sound Transit?
We don't generally have a problem with people participating, and we are fortunate to have a whole division, which is our civil rights and equity and inclusion folks, and that is their responsibility. We work with them hand in hand during a procurement. We have a specialist assigned to us, as long like me, I'm a contract specialist. We call them a CRE specialist, and we work hand in hand during the whole procurement to get the prime contractors to get subcontractors that are small minority business, DBE, SBEs. So that is their responsibility, and I just do procurement part of it. So I kind of get lucky that way, and we have a division that does that before, during, and even after, if the companies aren't meeting their goals, to help them meet their goals or figure out why they're not. They start doing outreaches to figure out people that can be under the contract. So I don't have to do that, which is kind of one less thing off of my plate, and that's what the CRE department is for.
Okay, thank you. Can you describe how you do your construction bid openings? Is the virtual process still a two-person process where you've got someone who reads it and someone who documents it? Or do you just show the screen using your e-bidding software? Cathy Robinson, I know that you already answered that particular little nuance, but just kind of wondering how you handle a little bit more detail on how you do your construction bidding. Does the buyer have a hotspot or anything as a backup in the event that you're doing something live and internet kind of tweaks out a little bit?
Well, you can't guarantee the internet. And so our e-bidding provider is cloud-based. So everything is on their system. It's not on ours. And again, when we set the toggle in the system to make the bid tabs available right after closing, literally anybody, including the public, could be right there waiting. And as soon as that project closes, they can click it on and see immediately what the bid tabs are. So we don't do a two-person opening anymore. The system does it for us. The only time, and even when we do the ones for WashDOT, basically we do it just like that. We have a Zoom meeting, and as soon as it closes, we just click on the link and the bid tabs are right there, and we just show it on the screen. Okay. So we don't, the buyers, we don't really do anything. The system does it for us.
Okay, thanks, Cathy. And Alex, I know you said you don't necessarily do construction bids, but there are some bids where you do a public opening, correct?
Yeah, absolutely, like all formal bids. And we do have, you know, like I was saying, we conduct it on Teams, and you have the primary contract specialist and alternate contract specialist, and we get on the call and read everything out, and then we post the kind of, like Cathy said, it's because it's an electronic system, it's really easy to post the bid tab. It's like a couple clicks. So after the bid opening, we post the bid tab to that public facing website that I was talking about before.
Great. Cathy, what about you?
Ours is a little more labor intensive because we don't have bid tabs in our system that we compose. So ours is still done on a piece of paper. It's still a public bid opening. The main contract specialist does read them. She's on screen. We also do ours through Teams. In our solicitation, we have the meeting pre-set up, and there's a link and phone numbers to call in if they don't want to actually going on Teams, or they're out and they want to drive and listen to the bid opening. So we do have somebody reading and then somebody writing, and then those get posted to our electronic bid site right after the bid opening.
Okay. And Victor says Spokane County has a Zoom meeting on formal bid openings, camera on, and they share the spreadsheet with vendor names and totals for everybody to see. So I've got one last question. So what are some experiences that you've had, including some of the things that you wish you would have known ahead of time, like those lesson learned before you like dive into a new project? What would you, for those of us that don't have this type of a solution implemented yet, kind of what are your lessons learned and maybe a cautionary tale?
I guess what we learned was we had the mentioning of bid submittals and opening and reading out loud layered throughout a lot of our solicitation documents. And so when we were cleaning them up and making them more electronic, we realized at that point we didn't need to keep mentioning those time and time again. And so we went to just mentioning it once. And if we really did need to reference it again, we reference back to that section rather than put it in there again. I wish we would have had more time to clean up our documents, and before we ended up having to throw them out there electronically. And honestly, the first couple of times we did it, we did have people catch where we still had, submit by paper, submit this way. And so we had to issue addendums and clean those up. But I would say if you're doing it now, you're going to go down that path. I would look at cleaning up your documents as best you can right now before you actually start posting them.
Great, thanks, Cathy. Alex?
Yeah, I think if I was thinking back on like what would make the transition to an e-procurement system a little bit smoother, or the things I wish I knew that would make that transition smoother. I think it would be not to, I guess, from a vendor's perspective, like not to assume that they're seeing the same things that I'm seeing, if that makes any sense. Like, we could log in as a vendor and see, see what they see. And then using the instruction manual, kind of say like, okay, they click here and then they click here and then, kind of go through the process. And it could look very intuitive, to me. And, but that's because I have the instruction manual like right in front of me. Right. But assuming that for the vendor is definitely not the right thing to do, because this is their very first time sometimes logging into the system, right? Logging into the supplier portal. And yeah, like I said, like things that might seem obvious to me because I've read the manual, like it's not obvious to suppliers. So I would reapproach, I guess, some of the ways that we engaged suppliers and gave them materials and look at it through that lens.
Great, thank you. Cathy, what about you guys at Sound Transit? Any lessons learned or recommendations?
I would tell you the one thing that we did do up front was they told us that we were all to go in with our own phony vendor name and play with it. So we posted something and we saw what they saw so that we could answer the questions in order to be able to help them further, which helped me along, because Alex is right. What I was seeing isn't necessarily what they were seeing. And I was trying to talk to them and it's like, no, I don't see that. So go in, if you're going to use an electronic one, do a dummy vendor account so that you post something and you get to see what they're seeing. It's really helpful. It helps everybody, including yourself, that you can talk the language that they are. And we really, like I said, we had already done most of it 3 years ago before the pandemic. We were a year into it. So it was pretty smooth. And I know we were all kind of complaining with our old system. Our IT department didn't want to use the old system anymore. They weren't supporting it. And we all kind of grumbled, oh, geez, a new system. But in the long run, it was the best thing we ever did was get it before the pandemic. So we didn't have a lot of lessons learned. Of course, nobody ever has time to clean up templates. We are no different and we're still cleaning them up. We're still finding things wrong with them. The people are coming in with, RFIs and, it's like, oh Lord, why did I not catch that? So that's a big one. Templates are always the ones that are going to cost you the most RFIs. So, I would just say templates and do a dummy vendor account in your new system so you can see the same thing they're seeing.
Perfect. I'm just scrolling through. I don't see any additional questions in the chat. And I don't see any more hands raised. Guys, we may get a chance to have 5 minutes back in our day. Connie just popped in a question. Did you survey bid opening attendees on their meeting preference? And if you did, would you be willing to share the results? Cathy with Lynwood.
No, we did not survey any of the bid opening attendees. I can tell you that after the first couple of ones that we did online, and then just posted the results like right after it closed. We got good feedback from a handful of people each time about how smooth that process was, and they liked it, but we didn't survey.
Alex, what about King County?
Not to my knowledge, no, we haven't surveyed the attendees, but that's a good idea.
You haven't surveyed either.
Okay. What about pre-bid meetings? Did you survey suppliers, contractors to see if they like the virtual format or if they prefer in person?
So when COVID first hit, we actually videotaped the construction site. One of our project managers went out there and just did a video and walked it through and talked about what work needed to be done and everything, and did close-ups of areas and stuff like that. And I'm telling you, that was widely received as being popular. They didn't have to come on site. They didn't have to leave. They could watch the video whenever they wanted to. We've kind of shied away from that now because everybody's kind of gone back to the way it always was about doing in-person sites and site visits and everything. But yeah, that was widely popular right when we first went into COVID.
What about King County?
No, not to my knowledge, that we haven't surveyed suppliers in pre-bid meetings, but just anecdotally, like I was saying before, I have heard that for pre-bid meetings or also bid openings, basically any meeting where they would have to find parking around downtown Seattle, they like not having to do that.
Perfect. Cathy Roberts, and then I've got one more question before we run out of time.
So we have never had a great attendance for site visits at all. So we still do them. And if one person shows up, that's just what we do. As far as pre-proposals, we call them pre-proposal meetings, they are widely attended. And we do them for all of our projects, A&E and construction. And we have, lots. We could have 40, 50 people. And we used to have them in-house, and now they like it better because they can be in their office doing work. They log in and they get to hear the whole proposal, that they don't have to sit at Ruth Fisher boardroom to, try to find parking. So our site walks have never been great, and they're still not great now. We are doing them again. And our pre-proposal meetings have always been well attended, and they still are.
Okay, great. And then one final question really quickly, and we've got 2 minutes left. Can each of you restate what bid software that you are using for the group?
We are using OpenGov, formerly Procure Now.
We're using Oracle eProcurement.
Sorry, I just turned it off. We are using, it's called Badingo. And it's a Canadian product, but it's out of LA, or it's where we bought it through.
Could you spell that, Cathy?
Biddingo. Some call it Badingo, and some calls it Bid and Go.
The emphasis on the syllable, right?
Exactly. Depending on how you're feeling about the software at the time you're using it.
And Maya mentioned Port of Everett's using Bonfire. WTA, and I know Weeby both use Cobblestone software, and public procurement for Spokane for free. So again, we're right out of time. So Cathy, Alex, and Cathy, I would love to say thank you very, very much for your time today, all of your insight, everybody, for your input on questions. Victor, our host, has graciously popped up upcoming events. So just be watching your email for chapter upcoming events. And I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you so much.